Hey, what's up, Logos Psychology students? Welcome back to another week. Happy Monday. It's a new week, it's a new month. It's June 1st, so happy June as well. It is the first day of the last week of Term 5. Can you believe that? We've already made it to the end of Term 5. I say already, it feels like it's been a long term to me. I don't know about you guys, but it's been a long marathon for this e-learning thing we've been doing, and we are at the final sprint, right? We can see the finish line. We don't want to give up now, right? We still got a whole week left. So grades can go up, grades can go down. But more than that, we want to make sure that we cover everything that we want to cover. I don't want to shortchange any of you guys. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get on to the blackboard. Check out the blackboard bulletin board. Remember, the bulletin board has all the instructions. We're actually on tabs right now. Let's go to the bulletin board. There we are. Bulletin board has the e-learning instructions right there front and center. It also have any announcements. The only announcement that I've been putting up regularly is about those regular Zoom meetings. And another reminder, we have one more Zoom meeting this Thursday at 9 a.m. and I promise we won't have any technical glitches this time, or fingers crossed. I'm do everything I can to prevent those, because it's our final Zoom meeting of the term. Might be the final Zoom meeting of your high school career for some of you, so that'll be a big deal. Zoom meeting at 9 a.m. But other than that, we know the drill, so let's get right into our assignments. Remember, your assignments can be found in a couple places. First, under your topics tab. You go to topics, you see the topic that we are wrapping up this week. We started it last week, is human development, and the stage of human development that you all are in is adolescence. And so that was the one that you all said, or many of you said, you wanted to learn more about. And so that's why we're covering it, because we've gone through the whole textbook, and now we're going back and just picking some greatest hits, looking more in depth at some of our favorite chapters and topics. And adolescence is always a crowd pleaser in my high school psychology class, because you guys are all adolescents. Who doesn't want to learn about themselves? And so last week we started on the first reading, which was that first download, page 321 to 327, where we were just kind of introduced to what adolescence is as far as the age range, and really when adolescence begins, in the early part of adolescence that a lot of people struggle with. That is the physical changes, puberty, but also there's a lot of mental changes going on there in early adolescence. But the one that everyone can see is the physical differences, the growth spurts, the weight changes, weight gain, weight loss, the acne, the growing hair in new places, and other things. Right? Again, it's an awkward time. And so that was, part of the question of the day. Do you think it's more awkward for men or girls or boys or women? I don't know. We had some good feedback on that. I'm not sure what my opinion is. As a male, I'm happy that I don't have to go through, what a lot of women have to go through when it comes to the physical things related to puberty. Today's reading, though, is more about mid to late adolescence, right? Some of the more psychological issues that really we start to see solidify later on in adolescence. First, you got to go through that physical change where your body, not just your body, but your mind changes too, right? We talked about that. The hormones affect that. When you start, getting into that more adult brain, once your brain development has reached that point, you can start doing things that you just couldn't do as a child. I mean, you can have a conversation with children and they can make, a lot of connections, make a lot of sense, but there are certain things that a child brain's just not capable of doing, and that's what this reading gets into. So let's go ahead and click the download for this reading and see what it's all about. Intellectual and moral changes. Intellectual, how you think, right? Moral changes, right and wrong, how you think about what's right and what's wrong. According to a couple of experts that we're going to learn about in this section, late adolescents and adults are capable of doing things intellectually that younger people can't do. And this leads them to have a more complex level of moral reasoning than younger people. Again, these are just theories, and these are just two theorists. The first theorist we're going to see is a guy named Jean Piaget, who is French, theory of cognitive development, intellectual development. And then we're going to see a guy named Lawrence Kohlberg, who developed a theory of moral development. And so Piaget is talked about first, right? And he talks about how the level of cognitive ability that adolescents find themselves in is the last level, according to Piaget, which is formal operations, which means that you can think abstractly, right? You're not just thinking concretely, you're not just thinking in black and white, but you're thinking in grays, right? And once we're capable of thinking in grays, it makes it much more, easy but also difficult to look at moral issues, to look at dilemmas and say, this is the right thing to do, right? When we're a little kid, right and wrong is pretty simple. This is right, this is wrong. Don't do this, do this. And then at some point you get older and you're just like, well, I've always thought that was the wrong thing to do, but you know what? Sometimes it might be the right thing to do. And sometimes the right thing to do is the wrong thing to do. And right? It gets confusing, right? And it gets more difficult, but it also gets more complex. And that's because your mind is more complex. Your thought process is more complex. And so that gets us to Kohlberg. Lawrence Kohlberg's theory of moral reasoning. He talks about the post-conventional level of moral reasoning and universal ethical principles. And so there is as we continue on, some questions about the generation gap, conflicts with family, which some people believe is inevitable during adolescence, but not necessarily. It's a cultural thing, it's a societal thing, it's also just your individual family. And then the reading and the chapter wraps up talking about juvenile delinquency, which I remember that was a popular topic in some of our discussions in Zoom meetings, and the issues surrounding juvenile delinquency. Again, juvenile delinquency is separate from adult criminal behavior, and they separate it for the reasons, multiple reasons, but really because juveniles' minds aren't as developed as adult minds, and so it's not fair to hold them to the same level of responsibility. That being said, adolescents can commit some horrible crimes, and so how do we deal with that? How do we prevent it? And when it happens, how do we deal with dangerous people? So this gets into that, and pretty interesting programs they talk about, and then that's one of the questions under the Pause for Thought questions, which you will be answering on Blackbaud, and you can answer them right here, right? Chapter 11, page 335 to 341. There's the Google form right there with those 4 questions, but you can also go back to the Assignments tab, and all of your active assignments, including today's assignment, Chapter 11, page 335 to 341, are there. In addition to our, question of the day. And so let's take a look at the question of the day, which is a dilemma that Lawrence Kohlberg, I just mentioned him, used in developing his theory of moral development, right? And some of you may have heard this dilemma before, but this is the question of the day, so you want to make sure you answer this. Again, as always with all questions of the day, there's no right or wrong answer, but this is an interesting situation that Kohlberg created, where he wants to know not necessarily what people say, how people answer this question. Should Hines steal the drug to save his wife, right? That's the basic gist of it. Whether you say yes or no isn't as important as the why, right? So make sure you answer the why when you're answering your question of the day. Why or why not? Why or why not should Hines, when you read the short story about Hines, do what he did or not do what he did for his dying wife? Again, there's no right or wrong answer, and again, it's going to be your personal opinion. But I'd like to know what you think. So answer that in the question of the day. Answer the Pause for Thought questions from the reading, and if you have anything that you're behind on, this is the week to get caught up in it. And if you need help with that, let me know. Otherwise, I will talk to y'all later. Peace.